Welcome to another edition of the Indy Investor Speakeasy. Um, Take two, not 15 this time, so that's good. We got Xander Cruz here from CR Maryland. He does a little bit of everything out there in terms of property management, flipping, rentals, um, turnkey. I'm going to delve into a little bit of private lending here in the future. And yeah, we're just going to see what he's seeing out there in Maryland as opposed to what we're seeing here in Indy, since we've only had Indy investors on so far. So let's see what's going on the East Coast and see how what's working for him, and maybe we can bring that out here to the Indy market or wherever market you're listening from. So, Xander, do you want to give us a little background how you got into real estate and everything like that?
I'll give it my best. It's quite the journey. In December of 2011, I graduated from college. I had a criminology degree, which I put to good use in real estate. So I sort of stumbled into real estate. It was never my plan, was never my goal. At the time, my parents were listing their house for sale. I needed a job. The broker offered me a part-time job. So I took it. I was making $20 an hour. I thought I was rich. And about 2 weeks later, she called me and offered me a full-time job, said, you need to get your license. You can come work for me. I'll teach you the business, and you can learn to sell real estate and make lots of money. And at that point I was hooked and I had nothing else to do. The job market was pretty soft anyway at that time. So that was 2012, and which is really crazy that that's 12 years ago now. So 12 years I've been in residential real estate. On that journey, I worked for Georgiana, who was my first boss, for about a year. Then I was an independent agent in her office for about a year. And at the end of that year is when she introduced me to my first business partner in the investment side of the world. We weren't partners in the beginning, but I started working for this guy, Craig. Brooks knows who he is. He was already a successful investor. I became like his sales guy. So I was helping buy and sell the properties. At the time, we were doing heavy fix and flip. It grew and grew. And at our peak, we probably did a little over 100 fix and flips in a year. That evolved. We started getting into wholesale. Then we started getting into rental properties and building a portfolio. So I'm condensing this a lot, but we at one point had 300 rental properties that we had bought and rehabbed and self-managed. In 2021, we actually sold almost all of them except for 44. And prior to that, we had also shifted into turnkey, which we talked about before the call. So we were buying, renovating, selling, and then property managing for our turnkey investors. And that became our big focus starting in 2020. So we started doing way less fix and flip and way more turnkey. So right now, today, in what year is it? 2024. We're property managing about 500 houses, almost all of which are owned by third-party owners that we've sold turnkey product to. My current partner and I, we own about 50 rental properties. We're still growing that. My original partner and his son, we're still partners in 44 rental units. And then we're wholesaling probably 50 or 60 deals this year. And then we've shifted a little bit back into fix and flips. We're doing less turnkey, but more fix and flip now, just kind of following the market trend. And as you mentioned, we're probably getting into private lending this year too. So just kind of expanding and growing and trying to grow on all fronts.
So it sounds like you haven't done very much in real estate is what I'm hearing.
I'm still a rookie in a lot of ways.
Experience.
I mean, I don't know. Because on the one hand, I just, sometimes I have conversations with people that I feel are way sharper than smarter than I am. And they're talking about crazy terms and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just a dumb single family investor. Like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, but yeah, sounds awesome.
You're like, why are you making it so complicated?
Right. Single family is very basic. I understand it. It's so simple. You get into multifamily, it's a whole different ball game, which I would like to get into that ball game in the next year or two, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's our goal as well.
Love
So
it.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about when did you guys shift into doing some of the property management stuff, was that just a no-brainer, like vertical to your business that you were just like, okay, this is something that, I mean, to be quite honest, everybody probably hates doing.
Right.
You're always the bad guy, whether you're talking to the investor or you're talking to the landlord or talking to the tenant. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of equate it to the police officer of the real estate investing world. No matter what, you're probably the bad guy in the situation if you're talking to somebody. So it's something that not very many people want to get into, but it's definitely a necessity. So I just wanted to see how you got into that, how you guys came to that decision, and how you grew that side of the business.
Yeah. Well, we were doing it internally first. So when it first started, we were only managing our own rental properties. And if that hadn't happened, we probably never would have, ended up venturing into third party. So we had the experience of managing our own and building out a team to do that. So when we got, I say introduced because we literally didn't know what Turnkey was until 2019, like the whole model. So we got introduced to it. We're like, shit, we already have all the pieces. We have a property management team. We rehab houses. We buy them. It's just kind of a no-brainer. Like with the
There's your
pieces
next
are here,
vertical, yeah.
we'll just start adding, third-party owners in. And then it grew and grew and grew. So yeah, I wouldn't personally set out to start a property management company, but the turnkey business model worked extremely well for us for several years. And now, interestingly, property management that's a sellable business, whereas wholesaling and fix and flip businesses, can't really sell them. But the property management company will continue to grow in value as it develops more cash flow and as the years go on. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of piece of the puzzle now that I wouldn't say we ever set out intending to do. It just kind of happened over time. And we're like, oh, this is actually kind of a big business. And to your point, it sucks. Like nobody likes property management. I'm very fortunate. Like we have a good team. I'm pretty insulated from it. Like I really don't spend any time in it other than maybe updates on my own properties. But that also requires having a large team to do that.
So how many doors are you managing again?
Right around 500. Might be a little over, a little under. Not quite sure.
Okay. And so you guys do a good job if you're still in the business. So like what kind of team like does it take to efficiently manage that many doors? Kind of like what's that team look like?
So we have in the business, we have a COO who oversees all the business lines. So reporting to him would be the director of property management, who obviously their exclusive role is in property management. And then beneath her, we have, I think it's 3 or 4 property managers. They have a couple admin support. Then we have a leasing team, which is a leasing manager and 2 leasing agents. And then we have like maintenance, which is overseen by, I'm not sure his actual job title, but call it the maintenance supervisor. And then we have like 2 technicians out in the field. So we've restructured that like no less than 10 times, but that's where we are today.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's always some changes. Yeah, that sounds like a great team. I think where a lot of people go wrong, at least at Indy, is that they take on 300 doors and it's just like either a solo operation or 2 people, and they're just trying to figure things out as they go. So I was just curious to kind of hear like how in depth the team was. But it sounds like you got almost all your bases covered.
Well,
if not all of them.
I'd love to touch on that too. I think what I've tended to find is that the smaller time operators that grow up into these large businesses really struggle to understand the structure and the business processes that are required to run these businesses. A lot of times you got to bring kind of an outsider, somebody with a little bit more of a business mind to bring the structure down into kind of the real estate world. I've seen that on the construction side. I'm curious to get your perspective on that, on the property management, flipping side as well.
Yeah, with specific to property management, you're totally right. Like there is no, well, if there is, I don't really know about it. And I don't read a lot of books. I probably should, but I have like way too much ADHD to sit down and finish a book. I've started like 12, haven't finished any of them. But it's ridiculous. It's true. But I pick up some good nuggets in the first part of the book. But anyway, so property management, there is no like defined model. Like in Keller Williams, there was I don't know, I'm sure they still have it, you know, a very defined model of how to build a team. And here's the different roles and here's how it works. It doesn't really exist inside of property management. And I would also say there's a lot of nuance depending on the market that you're in. So from Baltimore to New York City, 3 hours away, the property management business is probably totally different. Still doing a lot of the same things, but it's a different build out and company altogether. And what I found in property management is people fall into the trap. There's so much admin work to do that's what they start to do. They start to do it because they can check it off. Task complete, complete. I'm getting shit done. I'm working. But you're not actually moving the needle forward on the big stuff, which is leasing, collections, renewals, like just like the big numbers, the core things.
The stuff you don't want to do.
Right. It's very easy to go do 10 tasks instead of calling tenant A who hasn't paid their rent this month. So that's why we've continued to add more admin people and have them focus on the admin task, and the property manager should be focused on that. It's like resident and owner relations, rent collection, renewals, lease ups, like get it done. On the flipping side, obviously totally different. And it's kind of funny, like you said, because it's all under one umbrella. But yeah, the flipping side, I'm not sure what the question was. I've already lost it, but it's the same thing. There's been a lot of trial and error. We haven't really, there's no, like, in my opinion, magic formula. I think it's a little bit different for everybody. Plus depends on what you want to accomplish. Now I will say going back to probably 2019, we've had some really good consultants and coaches that we've worked with. Still working with 2 coaches today. So I think you do have to find people that can help guide you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The other big thing that has impacted me and my business is joining a mastermind. So I've been in a real estate mastermind since it was either 2020 or 2021. And that's just been phenomenal because the group shares what's working and what's not working. Here's a new lead source, try out this texting instead, just all the different things that would take forever to find out on your own. You know, we're testing and sharing, and it's definitely kind of a cheat code, and that's specific to flipping, wholesaling, rentals, financing. There's some property management in it, but it's not heavily property management focused.
Man, just like I think all of us have talked about, like there's such a void in property management in general, in terms of like in Indy, there's just, I like Randy said, like if somebody's good, they just end up scaling too quickly and they don't have the, like Nick
They
said,
don't have the support.
They don't have the business background to build it out underneath. They just kind of get too big too fast, and then they don't hire. They don't hire the structure underneath of them, and then it inevitably ends up imploding. Even if they are very good, they just can't keep up. They just overpromise and they just whatever, and then they don't have the business acumen to hire underneath of them. And then I think you said something really really good too, Xander. Like the property management side of the business is really sellable, because I feel like if you've been in Indy for any point at any number of years now, you've probably had your property management sell to somebody. At whatever point, like I know I've had property management companies sell on me 2 or 3 times now. And that makes a ton of sense. Like that's the probably the only scalable business that you can kind of market to sell, which is interesting as well. Again, I didn't realize we were going to go so far into property management on this, but it's super interesting that there's such a void there. And like, there's masterminds for all the flipping, there's masterminds for all rentals, investing in general, probably some construction stuff as well, but there's nobody who's like, and maybe there is, maybe somebody can chime in and send us a message and say, here's a book on property management, but I haven't found a book that can go and say like, hey, Nick and Randy, do you guys want to see if we can start a property management company? Like, we've never done it before. Like, what book can I read? You know?
Right.
So
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying also about what you described, the property manager who does a good job because they're small and they're doing everything and they reach that next level, but then they fail because they don't understand how to build infrastructure and people and hire and train and lead. That was a really big moment that I've had in the past few months with my coach, who I've been working with now for about 6 months. And his whole thing is, you know, companies start as a startup, and then from startup to 1 million, you run it a certain way and you're doing most of the work yourself. You might have a small team. When you go from 1 million and you try to scale to 3 or 4 or 5 million, it's completely different. You can't be the same leader that you were from 0 to 1 if you're going to grow past that. And that's not just leadership. That's like hiring, strategic planning, everything has to change. And so that was my big aha, because obviously I'm hoping to grow past where we are today. And it finally hit me. It's like, I have to actually change myself if I'm going to grow the company past where we are, because otherwise we're going to keep getting the same result because I haven't changed. So it's pretty
It has to be
interesting.
really hard too, because you get to like that 1 million or whatever, and you're like, wow, I've been super successful. Why should I have to change how I do stuff? Because you're like, I mean, obviously it's working, right? But then you have to kind of have that aha moment like Xander and be like, something's got to change here, because I'm just stuck here at, I can't get above this. Like, I've kind of hit my ceiling. So something's going to have to go differently, or I'm starting to get people fall off of working with
Yep.
me because I don't have enough time for me to go around.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It's interesting. Do you
So-
do any of like the construction under your property management as well, or do you hire that out third party?
No construction goes under. It's all, so in my construction team, which is focused on rehabs, we have project managers on staff, and they oversee renovations and they oversee the subcontractors. We don't have any subs or, tradesmen or contractors working for us as employees.
Interesting. Nick, you could probably expand on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of funny. We got into the GC business back in October of this last year. And it was a little bit of an adjustment from our side. We started doing it for other people, more than just the project management we were doing before.
Yeah.
We actually moved into that GC role. And then in January, we went out to lunch with a property manager, and we were asked, hey, do you guys do maintenance? And we said, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that has absolutely changed the business in a lot of ways. I understand why property managers want to outsource that. There's a little bit of kind of, washing your hand of what is a very difficult part of the business. It removes the conflict. For instance, how do you set pricing if you have your own
Right.
people on staff? Like, what's fair? Like, what's a fair profit margin? Like, there are a million things to consider. So I totally understand why companies where they're outsourcing it. Same thing on the contracting side. I'm curious from your perspective. I know that there are a lot of ways that property managers actually work with their vendors, their maintenance. They work with their contractors. How do you work with that with your clients? Is there any type of like management fee that you guys charge for that? Because I know some charge a management fee, some charge a kickback from the service provider. And so I'm just kind of curious on your end.
Yeah, we have a flat percentage that we charge for managing, and that's listed in the management agreement. I did also learn about, I didn't know about what you just said though, but I talked to this guy's a COO of a local property management company, and they're big. They think they manage like 4,000 or 5,000 units. And they've got things really dialed in, and that's what they do. They don't, the contractor will bill whatever the number is, $100 for the repair, and there's no markup on it. But at the end of the month, the agreement that they have with the contractor is that the contractor pays them back 20%. So whatever it is, if they got $10,000 of bills paid in the month, the contractor knows at the end of the month they owe the property manager $2,000. And it's kind of nice because there's a few different ways of looking at it, but it's easy for them to say, well, we're not marking up your work. And then the contractor obviously got to build it into their price up front, but interesting model.
Coming from
I guess it works. Yeah.
I've heard that model. The one other model I've heard of is the dual invoice model, which is a little bit tougher to wrap my brain around. Where, for instance, if you're the PM, I'm working for you. I have to send you 2 invoices, one for $100 and one for $90, $80, whatever. And the client sees the $100 one, you
Right.
pay the $80 or $90 one. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a gap there. So a couple of different ways of going about the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, at the end, the owner's paying the same, should be roughly paying the same
Yeah.
amount. I think my personal opinion is it should always be transparent. Like, people shouldn't be guessing on what we're making. We're not wholesaling them work, by a contractor. That's a different business models, at least in specific property management. So yeah, but always a few different ways to do it for sure.
I think Brooks and Randy might have just gotten an idea of wholesaling the construction work. I think that might be your next business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, if you brought a plumber on staff and you had them doing all the plumbing repairs, how do you determine, like you said that earlier, how do you determine what you're charging the owner? Because you're paying your plumber probably, I don't know, let's say $30 an hour. We got to bill a higher rate. Well, market rate with the plumber is probably $100 an hour. So then that kind of is wholesaling the labor. Not really, because you're employing them, but yeah, I don't know. It definitely gets gray. It's like it starts to
Yeah,
get
for
hard to
sure.
define. Yeah.
Yeah, Randy, you got anything for Xander on that? I was going to transition into a little bit.
No, I was about to say, we can kind of transition to kind of the other side of your business, man. So outside of the property management stuff, tell us a little bit more, dive into the other side of things.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it's almost boring. Like, it's the traditional fix and flip, wholesale, and then turnkey, which we already talked about.
Where do you want to take those businesses? Are you just doing fix and flip kind of steady right now? Or do you want to scale that, or like vice versa?
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to rehabbing, I actually like it in the sense that it's very tangible. And in my market, where we have a lot of issues with vacant properties and dilapidated properties, it's impactful, and people really appreciate the fact that a shitty house on the corner finally looks really nice and a family was living in it again.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of me that has kind of a mission. So I want to keep rehabbing houses for that reason. But on the other hand, rehabbing and selling, whether you're selling to an investor or a retail home buyer, there's some headaches involved. There's some, I don't want to say drama, but home buyers are emotional. Realtors can be emotional. It's just retail work.
A couple of episodes ago.
Yeah. So it's not my vision to scale that. I'd like to keep doing a really good number, somewhere between probably, I would like to, in a perfect world, just numbers off the top of my head, I would like to acquire and rehab 50 rentals a year, and then probably another 50 to 60 flips and or turnkeys, kind of a blend. And that's a lot of rehabs, of 100 some rehabs a year. That's plenty. Like, I really don't want to scale past that. Wholesale, I think we can and will scale. I think we've really held firm to our like core Baltimore metro. It's time to start competing in the DC metro. Go to Richmond. Like, there's other markets very close by that we can easily just start advertising in, and we have the sales process. So I'm pretty confident we'll find deals and be able to wholesale them.
How's the
so
wholesale?
I'd like to grow that.
I love talking that, because that's obviously what Brooks and I do for the most part. Like, how's the competition out there in your market for wholesaling?
It's heavy competitive.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that most people you walk into, it's been years since I went on an appointment, which I'm very, I very humbly say that. I'm actually kind of happy about it. But you walk in and they have a stack of mailers like this thick on the table, and you almost sometimes like, so why'd you call us? You get really random answers like, well, you have the Better Business Bureau accreditation, or I Googled you and I liked your reviews, or it's just like random.
Or they just picked a random card out of the stack.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, today I decided that I'm going to call the mailer. Like, we've definitely seen that. It's bizarre.
You were on top that day. You were on top
I mean, so
day.
that goes to, though, consistency. Like, you have to consistently keep doing it. See a lot of people try mail for a couple months and they give up. we still get people calling up mailers that are 2 and 3 years old. Like, again, I don't know why. Why the hell did you hold on to that card for 3 years? You probably got 200 other ones. But so aside from that, yeah, it's very competitive. I would say our competitive edge, the only edge you can really gain, assuming that your websites are professional and you're doing the right things for SEO. From there, it's just service. Like, you just have to be, there's a lot of yo-yos doing it. So
Yeah,
it's very,
for
it's
sure.
not hard to be professional. Like, be professional, dress right, treat them with a ton of respect, call beforehand, send them a thank you card after. Like, you just do those things and you try to make sure you're problem solving the correct way for them. We win deals because of that for sure.
Be empathetic. I mean, that's what when Randy and I are
Treat them
training
like a
any-
person.
Yeah.
when Randy and I are trying to like get like talking to anybody on our staff, we're like, hey, the number one thing is like you can win so much business by just being empathetic and just have a conversation. Like, some people just want somebody to talk to. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
choose you even for 10, 20 grand above whatever their best offer, or below whatever their best offer is. They might choose you because they like you better or they trust you more because you've had a conversation with them.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. Sometimes it's just being almost customer service oriented or
Yep.
hospitality oriented. But yeah, what is working right now? And so you're probably wholesaling mostly in the city right now, I would assume. I would assume you're probably keeping more stuff out in the county for yourself. What is working out there in terms of marketing? Is it mailers, cold calling? Are you still trying to do texting right now with the new regulation stuff? What's been working for you guys mostly?
Sure. I'll start with texting because that is definitely, it's not 100% dead, but it's mostly dead. We just tried changing to a new software. It's too early to tell if it's going to work. My thing with texting though is we have one guy doing it as a VA, and if we can get even a deal a quarter, like, more than pays for itself, it's just.
Yeah.
But if it runs dry for like 6 or 9 months, like, we'll probably just end up turning it off. The classic stuff, the SEO and pay-per-click, is always done well for us.
Well,
Pay-per-click
you need to help us
is-
with that.
Well, yeah, I will try. I don't know anything about it. We pay people to do it, just to be very transparent.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have found like the best of that world. That's who we're working with. So I'd be happy to share those with you guys offline. And then outbound calling, we do a little bit, not much. Same thing, like our lead manager, who's a VA, when he has nothing else to do, he'll just hit the phones and start calling the data that we have. And he ends up with stuff here and there, but it's not a huge take. And then last but not least, direct mail, we still do that. And that has been steady forever, basically. We also now started doing Facebook ads again, and we have gotten one deal off of that. So that's interesting. Back years ago, Facebook ads were like really hot and we were like crushing it. And then Facebook changed all their stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it went pretty quiet for a while, but it appears that it is a viable option again.
Yeah, Nick went into that, probably 6 months, 8 months ago or something like that. Tried to do some Facebook ad stuff, and he did okay with it. I tried to do it, suck at it for sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Nick's a
So,
former Facebook
I
employee,
sucked.
so he has a little bit more insight.
I know
than
nothing.
us.
No, I have no insight. I worked in Oculus. Like, I worked in the VR division.
I know, but I can do shit.
Yeah. What was successful for me was the outskirt cities, the ones that weren't hit, like Indianapolis. Like that, I'm sure they're getting hit like nobody's business. I was buying out in cities like Bedford, Bloomington, Linton, like Kokomo. A lot of these cities are a little bit less sexy, but then the problem with it was then I had to disposition those. So I ended up buying all of these properties and I flipped a bunch of them, wholesale a couple. It was just such a pain in the butt that I need to turn it back on because I made some money, but I just didn't have enough time to dedicate to it.
Got it. How are you dispoing? Are you guys just doing network and Facebook and e-blast kind of things?
That's kind of that's
It was an idiot. I bought them all.
Oh, you just bought them. Yeah, that's one option.
Nick's just straight up wholetailed and just flipped them and sold them.
Hey, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
I guess
Just got it.
I guess you turnkeyed one of them, right? To somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
No.
That's
But
cool.
Yeah. It's
Brandon-
a weird, yeah.
Yeah, we have kicked around a few times. We've never signed up or used it, so I really can't comment. I know some people using it. Investor Lift as a disposition tool. One really intelligent guy I talked to about it said it's not like your magic wand. It's not a magic wand. It's a tool on your belt, and if you use it, you will occasionally get a deal or two or get a better number or whatever the case may be.
It's an expensive tool.
It's expensive. Yeah, it's definitely costly. There's a few different options. He said not to do the expensive one, but even the lower ones are still expensive for sure.
Yeah,
we've
I think
gotten a little bit of
I think something
access.
like Investor Lift is good if you have kind of a small, like maybe just like a solo, maybe kind of like a team like Brooks and I, right? Where we don't have like a dedicated dispositions manager to be like
Got it.
hammering the phones. I think if you have a team and you have a solo dispo manager, they will earn their paycheck by not doing the investor list stuff, by actually reaching out in selling houses, right? Or selling contracts. And that starts with just having a badass buyers list and having your top 25 flippers, buy and hold, and real estate agents, cash buyers, and just hit them up on every deal.
Right.
And then email blast. And then you'll
Yep.
just pick up buyers that way.
Agreed.
Luckily our list has been good enough for the most part for most of our deals so far.
Yeah, I mean, we do pretty good at like sourcing the buyer before we even get the deal under contract.
Yeah.
So we're
That's
trying to
awesome.
basically tee these deals up, and
Yeah.
that's just because of our deal flow. We can do that. Like if we're turning in 30 plus deals a month, obviously, we can't do that for every house. But if we're trying to do like 5 deals a month right now,
Yeah.
we can identify a buyer for it either at or before we go under contract.
That's the best way.
Yeah, it was a lot less stressful.
Right. Definitely.
So I'm curious, a lot of the people who are listening might not have your breadth of experience. What are the parts of your business? Like you've obviously got several that you're working on. What are the parts of your business that kind of light you up the most? And what are the parts that feel the heaviest? Like basically, hey, if you were starting from scratch, which one would you lean into today?
Personally, I mean, for me, it's always been the thrill of the deal. So like when we get that house under contract and we're like, I just know, like it's Dundalk for 35,000. Like that's insane. That the house is probably worth 120 as is. Like it's a home run. That's a real deal we have right now. So like that gives me the ultimate rush.
For people listening, that's going to be a perfect burr.
Yeah, it's a good burr, great wholesale. Like we can do anything with it. So if you buy a deal right, and still have a happy customer, because that is very possible, it's a win-win. So, yeah, I really like deals, and then I've grown to like relationships, and I've really started to see the power of relationships, especially locally, and just how far that can go and the opportunities that you'll get that you wouldn't otherwise. So I still have a long way to go on that. Yeah, I used to really hunker down and just keep to myself. But I've realized that by getting out there and sharing and talking to people and, not looking for anything in return, but just trying to help people can go a really long way. So
Yeah, a lot of stuff
Yeah.
comes back. A lot of stuff comes back your way once you start like talking to people and networking without expecting
Right.
anything in return. That's something I had to work on a few years ago too. When I first like went full time, even before I went full time, I was like, I need to do a much better job networking. And once I did, like it just came back 20-fold. I mean, for example, Randy's now a partner now in the business, and that would have probably never happened if I didn't like open myself up and start.
Yeah.
So
You didn't ask me on the golf course.
yeah, exactly.
Is that where it happened?
What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah,
That's where a lot of stuff happens on golf courses.
and not on purpose either. Like it was just
Yeah,
something
no,
we
that's
were
the
just
best
like
way.
just talking through stuff, like where he was at, where I was at, and where we were looking for and like what we were looking for in the future. And I was like, man, this seems like a perfect opportunity. And then it just kind of built from there. So,
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
um,
Yeah. The
but yeah,
power
let's-
of relationships. That's a huge.
what would you say is like for personally for the business? What is your, I don't know, what's like your golden numbers that you're looking for? Not turnkey, but if you guys are going to fix and flip something and you're sourcing something off market per se, like in Baltimore County or something like that, you're looking to pick it up for X, you're looking for X rehab and looking for ARVs around X. Like what's probably what you're doing most of?
Yeah, probably buying like 200 to 300,000. It's going to put you as is, needing rehab. That's going to put you in a good area. I have one I'm really excited about right now in Cockeysville. We paid, I think stepped up and paid 309. Really wanted to pay 300, but I wanted to make sure we got the deal. We'll probably spend on that one 125, 130 as a rehab. So we'll be in it for, what's the math on that? 440, 450. And it's probably worth like 560, maybe 580. I think the inventory is so limited in these outlying county areas, the suburbs, that we're still seeing the multiple offers. We're seeing stuff shoot up. The pricing strategy that I've in the past year realized that is working better on those compared to before when things were really crazy. Like on that house, I'll probably price it at 549, knowing and expecting that it'll generate much more activity and probably competition, as opposed to like back in the day, I probably would have priced it at 589 and just pushed and probably would have gotten it. But now I'm kind of going back to that old school pricing of let's price it a little bit lower than we actually want and try to get under, whatever that magic number is. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's kind of a normal county deal for us.
Did you pick that up from your off market stuff, I assume?
That one actually was off market through a realtor.
Okay.
The other one, like I just made one active today. That was off market, direct to seller. Pretty sure they were direct mail.
So again, this is another reason why realtor relationships are really good, because we've picked up a couple from realtors that have worked out really well for us. But why, you could probably help us out here a little bit, because in our area, if we're trying to pick something up in like say Westfield, Sheridan, Noblesville, Cicero, whatever, in the northern counties that are B plus, or I guess I should say A minus and up areas, why are they selling to you for cheaper than just listing them? Why did the seller end up selling to you for 309 when he probably could have listed this potentially for like 350, 360, 375 or something?
Yep. Well, in the case when there's a realtor involved, that's a really good question. Like, I don't honestly understand why they wouldn't have just listed the property. Like they were paying a realtor anyway. So I don't know. I guess probably they wanted just straight up ease. Like they trusted their realtor and they were like, find me a good buyer. I don't want to deal with anything. Make it really easy. So that's probably the case there. The other house I referenced, we bought direct to seller. For them, it was just, they didn't really, everyone's a little bit different. And I think that they were financially secure enough that they were okay selling at a discount, knowing that they were choosing their date. They knew exactly when they were moving out. They're leaving 40 years of stuff, trash and debris that they didn't want to take with them. And they just felt comfortable with us. So they didn't feel the need to list it. They didn't want to do repairs because the house obviously needed work. So that's usually why is really a convenience thing. And no different. Like we're selling 2 vehicles. It's the same thing. Like we're selling to the Carvana because would you feel like listing it on cars.com and fielding calls? And that's a little bit different because a realtor would handle all that for you, but it's the same concept. Like we're selling it at a discount.
You must be finding decent cars. We're finding abandoned, like school.
Oh no, these were like fleet vehicles. We downsize our fleet a little bit. But yeah, the car, when we get a car like at a house, they're not usually no title, can't really do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
My hack for that is I don't know how it is in Indy, but here you have to get it onto the street. So like if it's in the driveway or if it's in the backyard, pay somebody to drag it out to the street and then file it as an abandoned vehicle, and then the county will tow it after like a month or so.
Thanks, Xander. That's how I used to get a bunch of my work.
There you go.
I used to get calls from people like you.
Yeah.
Can you please come tag this vehicle as abandoned?
Yeah, it's real. Because you can't really do anything else. You don't have the title to it. So
Yeah.
It's either that or you got to drag it to a junkyard. I mean,
yeah. Who wants to do that?
no, and that costs. I mean, for example, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. We just sold a property in Canby. That same reason why they sold to you, the convenience of not having to clean out their entire house.
My
but
gosh.
They had 2 acres or so, and it was basically a junkyard.
Oh yeah.
And we had like our initial estimate for somebody to come out. Somebody came out there, gave us an estimate to clean this out because we wanted to keep it. Was a minimum 20 grand to clean out this fucking property.
It was so much stuff.
And the guys
What did you deal with it?
So we wholesaled it to another
okay.
wholesaler actually who's going to keep it and
they're gonna flip it.
They're gonna flip it and they're still going to make a killing on it. So I think
that's good
because I mean we got it right, we got it at the right price and we wanted to keep it like I said, but yeah, just the ease, like something as little as that. Obviously, that's a major clean out and that's a major hassle that we just took off their plate.
right.
But yeah, I mean they're just like, you know what? I don't have to figure out what to do with all this stuff. I don't have to clean it out first.
They would have never handled that on their own.
Well, and they were elderly. They don't have kids around to help them.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That's why we're here.
So what would you say is the most profitable part of your business right now? Fix and flip?
It's fix and flip or wholesale.
Yeah.
It depends. Like you'd have to really dig into the math because on fix and flip we've got more employees, like between construction and whatever. So wholesale is probably like as a percentage the most profitable.
Yeah.
And then property management doesn't fluctuate, right? Like on wholesale, you get that one really big deal, and that month is extremely profitable. And then if the next month you only sell 1 or 2 and they're just then it's much less. But property management is pretty steady. Like each month, it's very predictable. And same on fix and flips. You can sell free in 1 month and have a killer month, and then the next month you don't have anything on the market, so you're at zero. But yeah, you got to look at it obviously longer than 1 month to really grade it. But right now, I'd say wholesale and fix and flip.
Cool.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Randy and I know, like there's months that we're like, oh man, we got 3 deals that we're hoping to close this month, and then just for whatever reason get pushed, and then like the next month we close 5, and we're like, okay, that makes up for last month that we thought.
Yeah, we definitely prefer more of a steady line instead of an up and down, but that's just the way it goes, man.
Totally, you can't avoid it. Like it's impossible.
Nature of the business. Yep,
it's completely impossible.
Yeah, I think for him, Randy.
No, man, I think unless Xander, you want to touch on anything else, but I think we got a lot of good info from you. But no, I think I'm good on my end.
What's your standard wholesale in terms of like where you're buying it, where you're selling it, and what's your average profit margin on that?
It's a little definitely geographic dependent. So obviously, like in
city and
Baltimore City, you're getting something for 30 and trying to wholesale it for 40 or 45, depending on what part of the city you're in, right? Like obviously there's pockets where it's completely different. Like we were looking at this house in Fells Point, trying to figure out if we could get it for 320, wholesale it for 350. Very different ball game, very different neighborhood. So then in the counties, though, the spreads are usually much bigger. So I would say like in the city, we probably average like 9 or 10,000, best case. The counties, we probably average 25 to 30,000. So it's just that different.
Why would you even wholesale those? Why wouldn't you just wholesale them?
Which ones? The
county ones. The county ones.
I think it just depends on the deal. It's a little bit case by case. We do wholesale sometimes. So there are times we'll just like we have one coming in Glen Burnie, we're going to wholesale. So it depends a little bit, but what we'll do is really sit down and look at the numbers. Like, all right, if we wholesale it, we think we can make 30. If we close on it, whatever, spend 10 and do X, Y, and Z, what are we going to make? And then if we close on it and do a full rehab, what are we going to make? You just kind of compare the three, knowing obviously that if you wholesale it, it's instant and you don't have to carry it and you don't have to deal with it. But if the wholesale number was 30, but the wholesale number was 60 plus, I'm wholesaling it all day. Like it's not, it's way too far of a spread, but to wholesale it to make another 5 or 10, probably not, probably wholesale it and move on. So yeah, you always got to look at that on your deals for sure. I'm gonna have to fly out to Indy for sure and see what you guys got going on. I want to see some of your deals.
I'd love for you to. That'd be awesome.
We got everything from a $10,000 burnt out shack to $300,000 home in Westfield.
I love it.
Everything in between.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not
I'm
too-
definitely interested. I really like Indy from my 2 times visiting. So
Yeah, we got to get you up to the suburbs. I think everybody who comes here from out of state, in terms of like California or my friends from Maryland, they're like, this is like Pleasantville, USA. Like when we bring them up to like the northern suburbs, they're like, oh, like for example, Nick, who was on, but everybody probably knows Nick by now that's listening to the podcast. Nick lived in California his entire life and moved here during COVID when he was working remote for Facebook. And he was like, well, I can just go, his rental portfolio was here, moved here during COVID, and it was supposed to be a 6-month move. And then
he stayed.
They've lived here ever since. He lives 5 minutes from my house. I can walk to his house. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you come out here and everyone's, it just feels so much nicer than.
People are nice. Yeah.
People are very nice. Like everything feels like a lot newer. Randy lives on a little lake town up in northern Indiana. That's definitely an area.
Bro, I'm 15 minutes from you.
I shouldn't say. I say northern India. I meant northern Indianapolis is what I should have meant. That was what I said.
Make me feel like I live like near Michigan or something.
Yeah, right.
So that's definitely an area that we're probably going to start fixing and flipping in here soon, doing some Airbnb stuff. But
love it.
Yeah. Let's end that here, but that's been another edition of the Indy Investor Speakeasy, and catch you guys on the next one.